So welcome and thank y'all for joining us for our Student Support Summit today. And we hope y'all have enjoyed some of the presentations so far. This presentation is going to be the VCU Summit. Student athletes utilize money management information and tools, presented by Garrett Knudson, the Assistant AD for Student Athlete Development at VCU Athletics, and Amy Pridemore, Executive Director of VCU Financial Success Center by VACU at VCU Business. So without any further ado, I will go ahead and pass it over to y'all for y'all's presentation. And we'll let people in. If y'all have questions, feel free to throw them in the chat and we'll answer them throughout the presentation as we go.
Thank you. So we will start with our presentation, VCU Summit, a financial education program that Amy and I developed over the past handful of years. So today, little agenda, we'll go a little bit further into introductions of myself and Amy. We'll talk about learning outcomes that we hope you all kind of take away from this presentation. We'll overview financial education opportunities at VCU, like on campus, and then also in the athletic department. And then we will discuss all things related to VCU Summit, how we got to where we are, what we do, and some challenges that we kind of oversee. So me, Garrett Knudson, I am the Assistant AD of Student Athlete Development here at VCU. We're in Richmond, Virginia. A little bit about my education. I was student athlete at Radford University in Virginia. Finished the Master's of Science at West Virginia University, and then a doctoral program in educational leadership at UNCW. Started my professional career at UNCW and was there for a while, and have since been at VCU since the summer of 2021. Currently, I oversee all of our student athlete development programming relating to careers after sport, leadership development of our teams, personal enhancement, a lot of DEI efforts, and then community engagement as well. So all things life after college, trying to focus on the holistic education of our student athletes. I oversee that here at VCU. And then I'm going to pass it over to Amy.
Hi, everybody. So glad that you could join us today. If I was in the classroom, I would tell you that I always need a couple of people to head nod at me and act like they know what I'm saying. So I'm going to count on Garrett to do that for me today with everybody else having their cameras off. But as Garrett said, my name is Amy Pridemore. I'm the Executive Director of the VCU Financial Success Center by Virginia Credit Union. That's what VACU stands for. I'm also a full-time faculty member in the Finance, Insurance, and Real Estate Department here at the VCU School of Business. If you look at my quote unquote resume here, my shortened resume, you'll see that I bleed blue and gold, and I am a product of West Virginia University with multiple degrees in finance, accounting, my MBA, and my certificate in forensic accounting. I got my start at the West Virginia University Foundation in nonprofit accounting, taught some adjunct classes for WVU in personal finance, and then was able to go on full time as the director for the Center for Financial Literacy and Education back in 2021. And then I actually moved down to Richmond at VCU in 2022, where I met Garrett. And in my current role, not only do I teach a gen ed class for personal finance, any student, any major can take the personal finance class, but I'm also responsible for all things financial literacy here on campus. So we touch undergraduate students, grad students, obviously student athletes, faculty, staff, alumni, and really just creating an entire financial wellness program for VCU, the VCU community, and starting to expand in the Richmond community as well.
So today, learning outcomes that we're hoping you take away after this presentation. Mainly the importance is to allow you all to gain an understanding of campus collaboration through the utilization of campus resources, and also how to locate experts in the field. For this case, it's financial education, professional development. We also aim to provide opportunities on how to connect programming for student athletes to experiential learning, which may go into combining multiple aspects of the student athlete's personal and professional development. We know that athletic departments are kind of tasked with a lot of things to prepare student athletes for whatever comes after sport or whatever comes after life. But we kind of found through our collaboration, that the ability to combine multiple facets of life skills, which could include career, leadership, and financial education into one holistic program, kind of provides an immersive experience that can allow our student athletes to gain additional insights into different life skills that they need during college, during their sport, and then also once they graduate and kind of move on from VCU. So hopefully this is what you get from today's presentation.
So we want to ask now, as long as Garrett can get our technology to work, is financial education programming mandatory on your campus for all student athletes?
I assume the poll's up. There should be a poll that popped up. Yeah, cool.
So some people say maybe or unsure. Let's give it a few minutes.
Maybe you're unsure. Okay. So interesting regarding that. Maybe you're unsure programming, if it's mandatory or not, but I'm going to end this poll just so everyone can see results. Majority answers coming from maybe and unsure.
And also to put in here at VCU, it is not mandatory on our campus as well. So we just, as we'll talk about throughout the presentation, we provide as many opportunities as possible, but it is not mandatory for our student athletes here at VCU.
So a little bit about VCU, formerly also known Virginia Commonwealth University. We're located in Richmond, Virginia, capital of Virginia. As a general campus, we're a little bit over 28,000 students. I believe that includes grad and undergrad students. We have a 16-to-1 student to faculty ratio, so relatively small class sizes, even though we are a large student population. 38 or 37% of our students are first-gen college students, 33% are Pell Grant eligible, and then 55% come from minority backgrounds. And then kind of to dive deeper into who we are as VCU Athletics, we have roughly 330 student athletes across 15 different teams. We don't have football, but the 15 teams is kind of with track and field and cross countries being separate teams as well. We have a student athlete development staff of 2 full-time employees, myself and another staff member, not counting Amy since she works in a different office on campus. And then of our 330 student athletes, 18% are first-gen college students and 38% represent underrepresented minorities. Just to give you kind of an overview of who VCU is and kind of where we come from.
So I think that, you know, I wish I had $1 for every time when I tell people what I do and I say I teach personal finance. They say, I wish I would have had that. And I say, yeah, I wish I would have too. I would have made not quite as many mistakes in life. But when we think about it from a student athlete lens, there's been quite a bit of research relating to financial literacy, financial education for student athletes. I think I saw a poll at one point, some research that came out that if student athletes go on to be professional athletes, at least a third of them will be broke within the first 3 to 5 years because they just spend all their money and they don't know how to manage it. But especially now, as you all know, it's even more important in the NIL space with students being able to monetize their name, image, and likeness when they're in a college setting. You know, most of the students on our campus are dealing with high student loan debt and, you know, figuring out how to pay for college, but our student athletes are in this very unique situation where they can potentially be making money while they're in school. So how do we take that information and provide it to our student athletes in a way that they are able to make smart financial decisions, not only while they're here at VCU, but also in the future. So that is how Garrett and I work together to provide the financial education on our campus at VCU.
So we have another poll. What financial education or professional development programming currently exists on your campus. This could be in the athletic department, on campus, available to anyone. Kind of all answers welcome here. Just get an idea of what we have. And if you want to list the school that you represent, that works as well.
Absolutely.
And we got one response.
Anybody else want to share?
Anything else comes to mind, just put it in the chat. We can circle back to it and have a conversation. So
Okay, can you hit share results, Garrett? It doesn't show up on my side.
share results. We see it.
I don't see any answers. I see that someone answered it, but I don't see what it was. Sarah, can you see that on your side or any attendees?
I just see one answer.
Sorry, I forgot I was muted. It said LSU was the answer.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
I
They were
was
from
typing it
LSU.
up. Yes.
Yeah, if you guys don't mind, could you take a second and type in the chat, maybe not a poll necessarily, but type in the chat what schools you're from and what your roles are there, so we also have an idea. That would be helpful. All right, well, everybody is doing that. Garrett, do you want to talk about financial education at VCU Athletics?
So as we mentioned, Amy and I are both relatively within the past handful of years new to VCU. This kind of just gives a little overview of what financial education looked like for student athletes and then the rest of the campus population prior to 2022. Amy and I met in the fall of 2022 or so. Decided to figure out what we wanted to do to kind of increase our programming. But before then, before Amy and I met, we in athletic department, we would bring in advance and they would host one or two NIL or financial education focused workshops for our men and women's basketball teams and then other teams if the coaches kind of wanted to. We had game plan online educational modules that we can kind of tailor to fit the needs to our student athletes. And then actually, it's kind of ironic that we would actually also bring in Virginia Credit Union. They're a large credit union in the Richmond area to come in and do workshops for our sophomores, kind of how to save money during college, and then also our seniors for budgeting and money management advice kind of post college as well. So we did low scale kind of financial education workshops, just like once a semester for whoever kind of showed up. And Amy will talk about kind of what's available on campus to the rest of the VCU population.
Absolutely. So we do have the VCU Financial Success Center, again, by Virginia Credit Union. They gave us a gift to endow our center back in 2019. So that's why you'll see their name pop up. They're a great funder of ours. But through our center, we have peer financial education coaches who work one-on-one with other undergraduate students and provide them information about budgeting, credit, investing, building your savings plan, paying off debt, etc. We do webinars and workshops as it surrounds those topics as well. We also have a gen ed class, again, that Fire 201 personal finance class, as well as a humanities and sciences 202, which is just a one credit, very modular based, less instruction, less in depth, hands-on instruction, I'm sorry, class that we have here on campus as well.
So there are some opportunities for student athletes and students to learn financial education, but we kind of took it upon ourselves to kind of take this one step further. And the rationale found, or we decided to go with for developing VCU Summit, to look at extensive financial education program that supports the money management goals of student athletes, regardless of how much NIL they may make, if they have summer jobs, if they don't have summer jobs, internships they may do, or post-graduation careers. We're also looking at programming that can impact all student athletes, regardless of their academic class, or what major they're in. So regardless of if you're a student athlete in the business school and you're majoring in finance, something that you can take to kind of tailor towards your personal finances. Or depending on their financial situation, whether you come from a family that's more well off or you're on your own, making your own money, kind of a general programming opportunity that can impact all of our student athletes. And then we're also looking for something that is not just another Monday night workshop once a semester, bring them in for an hour talk, and then they're on their way. Something that's a little bit more impactful. So kind of through thinking about those things, the collaboration of our office and Amy's office, the Financial Success Center, we developed VCU Summit. And Summit, we're kind of proud to, with the acronym, student athletes utilize money management information and tools. So that's kind of how we came upon VCU Summit. And the next slide, I think Amy's going to talk about exactly what VCU Summit is.
Absolutely. So I approached Garrett with this idea when I was back at West Virginia. We actually had a program called Finance University, and it was for K through 12 educators that we brought them in and we taught them different areas of personal finance and had curriculum resources, and then they would take those back to their classrooms. And so I thought to myself, this was a really fantastic program for educators. How can we take this idea and create something meaningful and impactful for student athletes? So clearly we can't do a full week-long event with our student athletes like we did with our teachers. So we have decided to make it 2.5 days, which we will talk about here in a little bit, has also been a challenge for us because, as you all know, student athlete time is very precious and doesn't come around quite as easily as, maybe a typical student does. They're very protective of their time, and as they should be. But we feel that this is the sweet spot for them to have these 2.5 days. They come in, they meet each other. What's really fantastic that Garrett and I have found is that they're, maybe some of them are track and maybe some of them are basketball players and some of them are field hockey, and they are in their own respective sports and know that each other exists, but they don't really have a great relationship because they don't have the time to get together and interact with each other. So VCU Summit is also a networking opportunity for them as student athletes to get to meet other students that might not be on their teams, that they maybe have otherwise not really interacted with. So during these 2.5 days, we put a schedule of events over there for our latest one that we had. We have done 2 at this point. Typically they come in, we feed them all of their meals. Again, this is at no cost to them. We put them up in a hotel. We take care of all of their meals, all of their expenses for the next 2.5 days. We will have different sessions such as name, image, and likeness, building your personal brand, building credit cash flow. We've brought in C-suite executives from the Richmond area to allow these student athletes to have these networking opportunities with individuals. We had, again, the president of the credit union come in. We've had people who are running physical therapy offices. We had the Medical Society of Virginia president. So we just have a wide variety of executives that they're able to network with and interact with. We've done sessions on real estate, entrepreneurship, again, character and leadership development, investing, because they all want to know about investing. Ironically, taxes was a hot topic this past time. Insurance and how do you build a financial plan or financial goal setting. And so we have these interactive sessions with them. We also do, it's not listed on this page, but we do an escape room with them. So essentially it's a scavenger hunt that they're able to create teams, and they go out and do a scavenger hunt for 2 hours and get to come back and figure out who won, who was the fastest. It was really fun. The first time that we did it, they were racing back and ended up using the birdie scooters here in town and were running in heels. We learned after the first time that we should probably tell them to dress appropriately for the scavenger hunt because they were all in their business casual attire and heels trying to run through our campus and run through downtown Richmond. So we lived and learned. We also do an etiquette dinner for them, which again, when you think of etiquette, it's like, which fork do I use and how do I sit proper? And that is to an extent, but also we're just teaching them those networking skills. How do you shake with your right hand? Where do you wear your name tag? How do you engage in casual conversation with people? What questions do you ask them? That sort of thing. So they do that on the very first night. And then the second night, we have a networking dinner where, again, we bring some of these C-suite executive levels, C-suite executives back. We bring in members of the athletic cabinet, like the athletic director. We bring in the dean of the school of business. Just people that they may or may not on a typical basis be able to interact with, and they get to sit down and have dinner and have great conversations and build these relationships with these individuals. And then at the end of the 2.5 days, they do a presentation based on their experience. They tell us what was most meaningful. They tell us what was most impactful to them, what they learned. And so they really just kind of comprehensively put a package together so that we can see what all they got out of Summit.
This next slide kind of overviews a little social media video that we have that kind of showcases the first summit we did last May.
Important to allow the student athletes the opportunity to hear one another's questions. I found a lot of energy in them being able to hear curiosity from others, and it led to other curiosities, and it really led to a lot of great conversations.
Coming out of college, we got a whole different identity outside of athletics. Once that's over with, we're gonna need to build ourselves, our character as a brand. So I feel like this business summit kind of helps us, become a better person, individual, and remind us who we are outside of, the sport we play.
It's important to have these type of events for student athletes and students in general, just so we can get the foundation of what we want our lives to look like in 5 to 10 years, as well as making the relationships with the people that are coming to speak with us.
I am thrilled that VCU is participating in financial literacy. I think it needs to be a priority of all athletic programs to really look at training the whole person.
So in that movie, you can kind of see a couple of the sessions, some testimonials from our student athletes. And then the last little clip was the networking dinner where we brought back all of our speakers and the other C-suite executive to kind of allow them the opportunity to network and talk to people in leadership positions as they move forward in the student athletes' professional lives.
Important to allow.
Sorry about that. So with all this in mind, VCU Summit has its own learning outcomes. We are kind of treating this not like a class, but kind of there's a syllabus that goes to it and kind of the objectives that we want our student athletes to learn once they complete VCU Summit. So the first one, explain the importance of building your personal brand and how that relates to financial education. Examine the economic, social, political, and technological environment, and to also be able to determine how your financial plans should accommodate these environments. Identify different investment opportunities to evaluate and achieve their individual goals. We want them to leave VCU Summit with a personal budget that they can use for their current situation, and hopefully that they take with them that this will be an ever-changing document, that if their situation changes, they get a pay raise, they get a full-time job, all of this. How they can allow for saving and investing, to evaluate and use of credit and plan borrowing to meet their household consumption and other financing needs, and then also to identify strengths and weaknesses in their initial situation and determine opportunities for problem solving. So for us, a lot of these are financial focused, but we believe that kind of the personal and overall holistic development of our student athletes can kind of impact these different learning outcomes from a financial standpoint.
So one of the biggest pieces to making something similar to Summit be successful is to have collaboration with the experts in the field. We have been able to, because the Financial Success Center is located in the VCU School of Business, we do have those really great relationships with business and finance professors who are able to come in and speak to our students. We also have relationships with the Federal Reserve of Richmond is here in town. So we had someone come from the Federal Reserve. We've had people come from Troutwood, which is a financial planning software company. They came and spoke with our students. Leadership professors that are here in the School of Business. Another key piece to this is alumni, and how do you pick alumni, because everybody wants to be involved in athletics, right? That is the gold shiny toy on campus, and how, if I'm an alumni, I want to be involved in that program. So we've really had to be strategic about which alumni we select. Typically we look at individuals that are very active with that maybe were student athletes in the past, and they are very active with the athletics department now. We look at School of Business alumni who again may have been student athletes or may have some connection to the athletic field, or even a field that maybe some of our student athletes are interested in, whether that be healthcare or business, etc. We have, again, with the credit union, Virginia Credit Union, we have, they have their own financial education staff. So we work very closely with them. They come and do presentations for us at Summit. We have campus corporate partners. So these are different CEOs, VPs across campus. Like I mentioned, the athletic department, the deans, the athletic director, the cabinet over there. They're all involved in the success of Summit. And then, again, those leadership experiences that we have, escape rooms, we have done things. We also built to be quite honest, a relationship with a local hotel that's right here on campus so that we could host these students. And how do you find a place that's appropriate for them, that doesn't feel too super fancy, but they still are contained and feel like it's upscale, like they're attending a professional conference. So just building these relationships with people in your communities that are willing to help your student athletes succeed.
Kind of going off what we do for VCU Summit, we do have another poll. If you can't access the poll, just feel free to put the answer in the chat and we can kind of discuss it. So what ideas do you have for financial education programming on your campus? This can be pie in the sky. This can be what you're thinking about doing, what you wish your athletic department did, anything. Kind of all ideas are helpful. Okay, so we have, I think it should be a required class for all students. I feel like Amy and I have that conversation daily. Anyone else have any answers about financial education programming? Okay, and then we have one more poll. So based on programming, what barriers do you see from implementing different ideas? You can put in the poll or in the chat. We got one answer. Amy, can you see the answer in the
I
poll?
can't, I just see that somebody answered it.
And that, I'm sure.
Yes.
I can't see it. Can you see what the answer is?
In the chat, she said many financial education speakers want large speaker costs.
Somebody else also said funding
Oh,
in the poll. Speaker fees, I think is what I meant to say.
yes.
Yes. So some of we're going to talk about a little bit of the challenges that we've kind of run in. Like I said, Amy and I started developing this in the fall of 2022, and we kind of went through everything. Is it different speakers that come in for all athletes? Is it monthly workshops? Is it all of this? And then with Amy's prior experience, we talked about kind of this immersive conference for student athletes, which we thought was kind of creative and maybe not something other student athletes may get. This could be something that is exclusive to VCU students. But some of the challenges that we've kind of faced, the timing, it's 2.5 days long. It's pretty much from morning until evening, 8 to 8 or 8:30 to 7 on the first day, 8:30 to 8 on the second day, and then a half day on noon. So the timing is definitely a challenge that we've seen. So off the bat, we started to host VCU Summit twice a year, but then we kind of dialed that back and thought about maybe if it's something we just host once a year. But we also want all of our student athletes to be able to attend this. Well, we know they're not all going to because it's not mandatory, but when can we provide it throughout the year that is available to our student athletes? So right now we offer it the last couple days before the classes start in the semester. Our next one will be August 13 to 15, and I think classes start on the 19th or 17th of August. The second
We've
thing,
also, Garrett, I'm going to interrupt you here for a second. We've also had this challenge of how do you offer it frequent enough that you're able to apply to all student athletes, but not frequent enough that like then it doesn't become a novelty anymore, that they're just like, oh, I can do that anytime. It's not fun. It's not exciting. And to be completely honest, there are only two of us, Garrett and I, and we did one in May and we did another one in January, and it was a lot. And we both looked at each other and we're like, oh, I don't know that we can do 2 of these a year. So, those are also some constraints that you have to think of, your manpower, your resources, your contacts that you have with this. How often are you able to tap into them? How often can you tap into them? Reason that we do them in the spring, it's just how it happened. So the first one was in May after classes ended. So after finals were done, and then it was too soon to do another in August before classes started. So we did one in January before they came back for the semester. So our next one will be this coming August. So, think before or at the end of when your semesters happen, and typically nobody wants to stay around in December. They all want to go home at that point. So we're limited as far as that goes.
right now we're kind of on a every 9 months timeline. So we'll go January to August to probably May of 25, and then January of 26. So that's kind of the frequency we're on right now, but also just accommodating to the different competition schedules. Like if we do it in August, pretty much all of our fall sports are out because they're in preseason training, and same in January as well. When our basketball teams are competing, we have track and field that comes back, baseball is starting to practice, all of that. So our thought is to provide it at least a couple of times throughout their 4 or 5 years here, that they have the ability to attend. If they can't go January, maybe they can go in August. If they can't go in August, maybe they can go in May. There's going to be challenges regardless of when it happens, but we're just hopeful that at least they'll have the opportunity to attend one before they graduate. Funding, Amy's going to talk a little bit about this in a future slide, but luckily enough, we are funded to provide this opportunity, but there are ways to tailor this to match the needs of your campus and the funding that's available. We don't really pay speakers to come. We use a lot of the campus resources we have through Amy's office and through our school of business, through alumni, and most of them are free. So why not use the resources that we have? If we have someone on campus that teaches a finance 101 course and they talk about budgeting and finance and investing, why don't we see if they can spend an extra 45 minutes on a Tuesday and come and speak at VCU Summit? So there are ways to tailor this to different campuses. The one in January, we put them in hotel rooms and use kind of conference centers for that, but there's also campus reservation spaces, I would assume, on all campuses that you can use for free. We have some offices in the athletic department, but due to funding, we're trying to make this a little elevated experience for our student athletes, but there are ways to imitate VCU Summit on a lower funding scale. Buy-in. So a lot of this kind of goes back into the frequency and the timing. It's a hard push to say, hey, give up a few days of your summer vacation, with might be the only free time that they have to come back and learn more. I mean, but hopefully it kind of hits the goals that they have. We also have a large number of out-of-state and international students. at VCU, or student athletes at VCU. So getting them, maybe they already booked their flights home for the summer, or they just don't have a way to get back to campus for this, and everything that goes in over the summer or their breaks. And then, like I said, getting them to cut their winter break or summer break short may not be a top priority for most of our student athletes. And then the other challenge we had, as you can see in our logo, it does say VCU Business because we were partnering with the VCU Business School. A lot of our student athletes thought it was just for business students. If you're majoring in the school business, they were like, that's just for them. And the first two that we've seen have been a high majority of School of Business majoring students. But that's a challenge that we've had, that it's open to any student, regardless of their major, regardless of their future plans. If they want to go pro, if they want to become a teacher, if they want to get in the business world, if they want to work in higher ed, anything, this opportunity is open to all student athletes. But the naming of what we call this, and kind of the collaborative nature between Amy's office and my office, has been one of the challenges that we've seen, that they believe that it's only for business students. So kind of going with applied learning, excuse me. So at VCU, we have something called VCU Real. Real stands for Relevant Experiential Applied Learning. We're big on the acronyms here, I guess. But all incoming undergraduate students, campus, all students are required to complete at least one real experience before they graduate. This can come in two ways: through an approved real course. They're usually called Real 301 or Real 399, kind of whatever the number is. But they have achieved an attribute of Real level 2, 3, or 4. I'll talk about those in a minute. Or through a co-curricular activity, which is at the Real level 3 or 4. So currently we're almost to achieving this kind of graduation requirement. VCU Summit's currently at a Real level 2 co-curricular experience. We're kind of figuring out ways that we can get it up to the level 3 so that it counts for a check mark on their graduation requirements. The one thing that we are kind of lacking in VCU Summit is a longer term mentoring experience that they want to see in the applied learning requirement. So Amy and I have been trying to figure out ways to incorporate, maybe it's they go to Summit and then they're matched with one of the speakers and they talk more on whatever topic, personal branding, NIL, budgeting, all of that. Or maybe it's on the leadership side of things, that they talk more as a mentor with a leadership coach or a financial success coach through Amy's office. So we're exploring opportunities to kind of add more mentoring on a longer term scale than 2.5 days into our program, to hopefully get it up to the level 3 that's needed to check off the graduation requirement. But connecting with different campus departments on other experiential learning opportunities is a great way to kind of get the name out there, make it more appealing, hopefully, to student athletes or anyone when developing programs.
So as I mentioned, our endowment, our center is funded through an endowment from Virginia Credit Union. That is separate from our student athlete programming. So that supports, all financial literacy on campus. However, when Garrett and I met and we wanted to build out the student athlete program, because of our relationship with the credit union, they almost have a right of first refusal. So we went to them and we said, hey, we would really like to fund this program. Would you have any interest in funding it? And they said, yes, we don't want anybody else to come in. And we're like, fantastic. That's amazing. We love having partners who are willing to fund our ideas and our pilots. So essentially, they gave us a specific dollar value for 5 years. So this program will last for at least the next 5 years, see where our buy-in happens, see if we can continue to grow it. And then hopefully either our endowment is large enough at that point that we can fund this through my office, or, they might be potential to give us another funding for another 5 years. But it has been very beneficial because it I don't want to say it doesn't come with any strings attached, because we're still, you know, required to report to them what type of funding that we do and how many student athletes we reach. And we're very conscientious of that relationship with the credit union. We involve them in our programming. We ask them to come back as speakers. They have a very large presence, and they're a wonderful, wonderful partner that we're very excited to have on our team. So I can't say enough about, you know, looking for financial institutions, look for credit unions in and around your campus that might be willing to support something like this. There are plenty of people who feel like, you know, as all of us have just said, we think it should be required for everybody, period. But, you know, there are plenty of people and organizations and corporations that feel the same and would be willing to support whatever that level is, even if it's just for a pilot to try it on your campus. I highly suggest looking to your development team, and I'm sure that they have some funders in mind that they would be really willing to help with as far as that goes. So in conclusion, today we wanted to share some of our testimonials, and I know that Garrett and I had talked about one of the challenges was getting buy-in for them to give up their days. And, you know, it's so funny that when the ones that are committed and they come, they say, this is the best thing I've ever done. I'm so glad that I gave up this time. I'm so glad that I pushed myself out of my comfort zone to be able to do this. And so I think that that speaks volumes, but it's, again, how do you get those student athletes to have that internal motivation to be able to come to this in the future? But these are a few of my favorite quotes that we had. They did these in their presentations when we had our very first summit last May. One of our student athletes said, I called my dad after it was over and I told him I'm going to be a millionaire and I have a plan to do it. We had another student that said, we're told so many times how important money is and that we need to save, but we're never told how to do it. This conference provided us with those skills. And then before I turn it over to Garrett, it said each speaker had resilience and motivation. That was enough to encourage me to keep going, to break through walls, to be the man I'm meant to be. So it's not just necessarily financial education, but again, that personal development piece, and how do you encourage them to be the best that they can.
And then the last two, I think we as a student athlete development office, we provide a lot of opportunities for them throughout the year through workshops, networking events, career fairs, kind of everything. But this one kind of made Amy and I feel like this is we're on the track on something. So the best experience I've had at VCU so far. We don't think she was just talking about the stuff that was in athletics. It may have been a secondary comment about it was better than some classes, but it was incredibly empowering. When you're not from business and don't learn about stocks and investments, you don't feel empowered. Also powerful to hear from so many successful women. And then the last one at the bottom, where I come from, kids don't have access to financial literacy. This is a life-changing experience. So our kind of goal moving forward is to take these kind of testimonials from student athletes that have been through VCU Summit and try to make them almost like encourage their peers to attend the conference. Yeah, it may take 2.5 days out of your summer, but the return on that could make you a millionaire. And now you have a plan to do it, basically. So these are just a handful of some of the testimonials we've gotten after both of the VCU summits so far.
And we didn't have a chance to touch on it, or we inadvertently left it out, but we've had about 13 student athletes average each time that we've held it. So we would really like to get that number more like 20, 25 each time it's held. So hopefully we'll get there. That's our goal.
That kind of wraps up our presentation. Are there any questions? Feel free to unmute, put in the chat. Sarah, did we answer your question about why we do it in the spring?
Yeah, for sure. Definitely understand the scheduling challenges around competition, travel, and times of the year for that. For us, the fall is football season. You know, I know y'all said y'all don't have football, but it's really hard to plan anything on a weekend around football season. So I was just wondering if that had any kind of bearing on it. But that makes sense, the 9-month schedule, so that you kind of hit different classes of students as they come through. You know, maybe they can't do it as a freshman, but they can catch it as a sophomore. So,
and we've kind of had we've had 26 or 27 students finish it so far. They range everywhere from, we had new freshmen come to all the way to grad students graduating. They graduated in that semester. So we kind of got a wide range of at least academic years We touched on the majors, mainly business related students, but we've had a handful of other majors. And then we also looked at possibly hosting it on a weekend, but then that might be even a harder push versus during the week or whatnot.
We also looked at our corporate partners that, you know, I don't like to work on weekends if I don't have to. So, you know, if they're volunteering their time, they're probably more likely to gonna do it during a weekday as part of their job duties versus coming for a weekend as well. So that was just something that we took into consideration.
And I feel like that's like a big topic that comes up regularly. Like all students need this kind of education, you know, and then, but it's not made mandatory. And I feel like that's the challenge with a lot of our programming is when it's not mandatory, there's not a lot as much buy-in as you hope for. So the numbers are low, but then once the students do attend, they love it, you know. So, and this is like really useful. So I think we've had like speakers we brought in, like local people, like we have a Campus Federal Credit Union here on campus, and you know, we'll bring in people for like little small mini sessions for things like that, but it's nothing this intensive. So I think what y'all have created is really awesome.
And we've kind of
Thanks.
supplemented VCU Summit with Amy will do some sessions throughout. We've had, like I said, Virginia Credit Union come and do some stuff throughout the year as well. We did a tax session a couple weeks ago. We've done investing, we've done other budgeting related workshops as well. So we try to throw in some other kind of one-off workshops, but we're definitely trying to push a lot of our student athletes towards this. That's other than that, that's if there's no more questions, that's all we have. We put your this thing up the end if you need it.
Awesome. Well, great. Well, thank y'all so much. I really appreciated the information and the presentation. And everybody, if y'all can scan that little evaluation link, give us some feedback on it, we'd appreciate it. And our next round of concurrent sessions starts in about 8 minutes. Don't forget, we have sent out updated links for those, so check your email. We had some issues with some of the links this morning, so all of the links are new and updated, and they should work properly here moving forward. So thanks again for joining us. Thank you, Amy and Garrett. Hope everybody has a great day.
Thanks so much.